And that brings us to our final game of the week, our game day of the week. In Charlotte, North Carolina, neutral sighting for this game, number 14 Tennessee Volunteers versus the number 24 NC State Wolfpack. This is a 7:30 kickoff on ABC/ESPN Plus. Tennessee favored by 7 in this one. Bank of America Stadium. Again, neutral sighting. Dave Dorian versus Josh Heupel. Both breaking in new quarterbacks in their own respect. You got Nico, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, on the Tennessee side versus Grayson McCall, transferred via Coastal Carolina for NC State. Grayson McCall kind of struggled last week. Nico looked very good, but it's week 1. Both things can change week 2. Brad, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this game and who do you got coming out on top?
Yeah, this one early on is all about the quarterbacks, guys. The way I look at it, and Nate, you mentioned Grayson McCall looked okay last week in his NC State debut, and I don't know what you guys thought. Would love to hear your takes. I thought NC State looked a little sluggish. Of course, they pulled away from Western Carolina late, but was not the convincing victory that we thought. And guys, NC State came into the season with a little bit of hype, and especially now that we're talking about the ACC is truly wide open, that everyone that is wondering kind of who that second team in the ACC is, and NC State's got a great chance to make that statement and say, hey, we're an ACC contender this year. But I just thought NC State looked a little out of sorts. They, of course, pulled away in the fourth quarter, but I'm interested to see how they look. Grayson McCall, had some moments. I was really impressed. Ohio State transfer Noah Rogers, he made some plays. Kevin, I'm going to struggle with this last name, but Concepia Khan, I know I probably butchered that, but he is a really, really just very, very good playmaker. And NC State, struggled, but like I said, they did pull away. But want to focus on Tennessee. Nate, you mentioned Nico. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name either, but we've seen him in 2 games now. We saw him in the bowl game. And look, he looked really, really good, very efficient, 22 of 28 through 3 touchdowns. We know about, this receiving core. This receiving core is so dangerous. Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Braswell, they've got weapons all over the field. One of the things, guys, that stands out to me, though, when we saw this last year, Tennessee's got a good rushing attack. You think about this Josh Heupel offense where they're trying to get, as wide sets as they can. And Tennessee had a great run game last year. Dylan Sampson comes back this year, and, he started out great last week. 3 touchdowns, 124 on the ground. Guys, my pick is that I just think Tennessee is going to be too much offensively. I think NC State's going to make some plays, but I think just Tennessee's overall team speed. I think this is kind of a coming out party for Nico. I think everyone in the nation is going to know who he is after this game. I think the Vols win this one. I think the Vols win this one by double digits. I'm interested to see what the over-under is for this one because I could potentially see this being, Tennessee, 42, NC State 28 kind of game, but I'm going with the Vols in this one, guys.
Wow. Great pick, Brad. Rooster, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this game and who comes out on top in this SEC versus ACC matchup?
Well, NC State has Kevin Concepcion, who is an absolute dog back there. But other than that, do not let that score last week fool you. That 17-point game, it was a 1-possession game headed into the fourth quarter. They should have lost to that Western Carolina team outside of the final 5 minutes of the game. NC State's game last week was the absolute definition of mid. They didn't do really anything to impress any of us. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you've got Tennessee, who was back there slinging it all over the field. Nico put up a Tennessee record for first half passing yards, and he has an absolute bundle of weapons back there to sling the rock to. Plus, you got Dylan Sampson back there, who's a dog in the backfield. He had 2-3 touchdowns last weekend against Chattanooga, and even though it is Chattanooga, it is hard to just overlook the fact that Nico was out there throwing for 314 yards in the first half. But with all that being said, the Volunteers got Davy Crockett back there. He's got Nate. He's got that rifle that's about to go shoot down the whole pack of wolves. So I can see him taking that little tail, making a hat out of it, and he's going to have a new wife rocking that Wolfpack hat. And Tennessee is going to be easily covering this spread.
Wow, Rooster coming out with some heat for this game. And to Dio's point, I mean, look, no one expected – well, I say this to say, when Josh Heupel was first hired, everyone was very skeptical of what he would be able to do with this Tennessee program, especially with how much turmoil it was in after Jeremy Pruitt just absolutely botched it. And here we stand, week 2 of 2024 season, and they're ranked 14th. I mean, it's taken a long time for the Tennessee Volunteers to get back to relevancy, if we're being completely honest. We've seen Florida go downhill. We've seen Kentucky stay level-headed. We've seen a couple other programs go downhill, but here Tennessee stands strong under Josh Heupel, and he brings in 5-star Nico to be the leader of that. And look, week 1, it's hard. And Brad, I want to answer because I know you asked me what my takes are on this game. It's hard for me to make judgments off of week 1 because you look at some teams that are really bad, and by week 4, they look like a college football playoff team. And we look at teams and see that they come out swinging week 1. They win by 30. They win by 40. They look absolutely phenomenal, like a team in Miami. And then by week 6, week 7, you're thinking, who is this team? With that being said, I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going to take the Tennessee Volunteers. I think NC State will step it up this week. I think they're going to play a lot better. And I think some teams play up to their competition. And that's another thing. Some teams play down to their competition. Look, we saw Georgia a few years ago look horrendous in week 1 versus a cupcake. And then by the end of the year, they win the national title under Stetson Bennett. So both of these teams have a lot to work on. All of these teams really, from all the games we've picked so far, have much improvement to do, including teams like Michigan up front. We saw them struggle in week 1. Who knows what they're capable of in week 2, week 3, and so on. But for this game alone, I'm going to stick with my gut, like I said, and take the Tennessee Volunteers. I think Josh Heupel, and to your point, they've got some great wideouts like Thornton and Squirrel, which, by the way, I thought they were graduated by now. That's how old we're getting. I guess they're playing in their 10th year as well. I should have stayed in college a few more years myself. But nonetheless, that wraps it up for this week. When we come back next week, we're going to talk about our week 3 predictions. Be sure to subscribe down below. Like this video if you liked our content, and comment who you believe will win these matchups. And be sure to check out our new partnership, squadblitz.com, a new way to play college football fantasy, the only way to play college football fantasy, I should say, but a new way to play fantasy football. If you're tired of the old stagnant NFL way where your quarterback goes down week 2 and you're screwed for the rest of the year, look no further than squadblitz.com. Switch out teams every week, and you're always guaranteed to have a quarterback from that team. We'll see you next week. It's time to break the huddle.